If you watch this channel, which you obviously are, you're for sure already using AI in your work life. But pretty soon, robots are going to be everywhere. Robots with AI brain. But a new study that's come out is showing that these robots that are going to be next to you in the kitchen, on the factory floor, and in the office could be secretly weaponized against you with just a few pixels of invisible manipulation. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. I'm building AI capitalists to talk to the leaders and the thinkers, like you, about navigating this brave new world of thinking machines. Robot manufacturers are promising ironclad safety protocols, but researchers have just exposed a terrifying vulnerability that allows attackers to transform helpful robots into potential threats without changing a single line of code. The disturbing part of these attacks isn't just that they can succeed in over 50% of attempts, but that the compromised robots show absolutely no visible signs of having been hacked while pointing knives directly at human users. This isn't some distant threat. It's happening with the exact same technology that's being rapidly developed for homes and workplaces all over the world right now. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. I'm building AI capitalists to talk to the leaders and the thinkers, like you, about navigating this brave new world of thinking machines. So let's picture a scenario where you're working alongside a helpful robot assistant in your kitchen. It's slicing the vegetables with a knife. Then suddenly, without warning, the robot turns and jabs the knife directly at you. This isn't science fiction. This is a real vulnerability that researchers have just uncovered in today's most advanced AI robot systems. Now, this study comes from researchers across multiple Chinese and American institutions, and it's revealing a security flaw. The researchers have discovered that by subtly manipulating the visual input that these robots receive, the attackers can cause them to violently violate safety protocols and to potentially harm the people standing next to them. The researchers focused on what's called the action chain in these robots. That's the critical system that translates visual information into physical movements. At the heart of these systems is a vision, language, action, VLA model, which allows robots to understand verbal instructions and visual scenes and then perform the appropriate actions. So think of it like this. When you're driving and you suddenly see an unexpected object pop up on the road, you might swerve without even thinking about it. These AI systems can be tricked in a similar way, but the object that they're reacting to isn't really there. It's been carefully designed implanted visual noise that humans can't even detect. The researchers divided these safety violations into three separate classifications, being critical, dangerous. Critical violations involve robots handling dangerous tools like knives. Dangerous that involve moving objects that are moving too quickly or releasing them at the wrong time, like spilling hot tea on someone. Risky violations involve collisions with objects. All right, so let's get into this study. So they named it Annie, which is the name of their benchmark that they're using for safety. Seems like every paper now is inventing a new benchmark, and we're going to have to decide which one works best. But in this case, it's measure of how manipulable is the robotic visual interface. So when we look at figure 1, they created this taxonomy that I talked about earlier, where they classify how robots can hurt people. They basically took the international rules on how robots should behave around humans and broke everything down into 3 levels of, oh no. So, for instance, one metric is they have a robot holding a knife at the top here, and there's a distance limitation. If you're too close to a human holding up a knife, bang, Mr. Robot, you're getting written up. You've committed a critical safety violation. And you can see the other ones I mentioned earlier here with velocity and collision. So pictures in figure 2 aren't so great, but you can see that they've shown some examples of the different scenarios that they set up to test their ability to get the robot to violate the safety protocols. They built this whole thing on top of Maniskill, which is like a physics simulation platform. And the detail that struck me is that they're using Franca Amica Panda robot arm, which has 7 degrees of freedom with a 2-finger gripper. And they have cameras everywhere to record. So figure 3 shows how they really got the robot to attack. Let me break this down to show exactly how this attack works, because when I dug into figure 3, it became clear just how sophisticated and dangerous this system process is. So you've got this robot that's supposed to cut an apple with a knife. Normal day, normal task. But here's how they hijacked its brain. Step one is pretty innocent. They let the robot just do its thing exactly like it's normally doing. But the robot looks at the scene with its cameras and it processes the instruction, cut the apple with the knife. And its AI brain, which is that vision language action model that we talked about, spits out what it thinks the right action should be. Let's call this the good robot action. Maybe something like move 2 centimeters forward, rotate grip arm 5 degrees, keep the knife pointed towards the apple. But then they bring in this attack leader module, which is over in the top right corner of the figure here. And this is where things get a little more diabolical. This thing actually is a separate AI that's been trained specifically to figure out how to make robots do bad things. It looks at the exact same scene that the robot is looking at. But instead of thinking, how do I cut this apple safely? It's thinking, how do I make this robot hurt someone? What really gets me is how systematic this attack leader module is. It's got 3 main parts working together. First, there are ResNet image encoders that they analyze what the robot is seeing from multiple camera angles. Then there's an embedding layer that takes the type of attack that they want. Do they want it to be critical, dangerous, or risky? Basically, it's saying, what can I get away with to hurt the humans nearby? Attack embedding layer that takes the type of attack that they want and turns it into a mathematical representation that the system can work with. The third part of this feature is the extractor. That it combines everything, the visual information and the attack type, and it outputs 2 crucial pieces of information. The attack direction, so this is a 4-dimensional vector that figures out where the human is or where the human's going to be, and exactly how to modify the robot's movement. So now they've got this mathematical recipe for how the robot can be made to misbehave. They take the robot's original good action, so they then add this malicious modification. And that's what they call an adversarial target action. So instead of just move toward the apple, it might not be move toward the apple and then slightly left toward the human, right? But there's this really insidious part. They can't just tell the robot, hey, do this bad thing instead. The robot would reject that outright. And also, if you dive into the programming of the robot, it's going to leave fingerprints that you messed with it. So what they do is they can trick the robot's visual system into thinking that the bad action is actually the right action. So they develop a PGD, which is a projected gradient descent. And it's something like out of a hacker movie. They take the original image that the robot's cameras captured, and they're intercepting between that point and when it's going into the robot's own programming systems or action motivation systems. And it's making tiny pixel level changes to it. Adjustments so small that if you looked at the original image and the modified image side by side, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference visually. But here's what keeps me up at night, because even though these changes are invisible to human eyes, they completely mess with how the robot's AI interprets the scene. It's like they're speaking directly to the robot's visual cortex in a language that bypasses all of its safety systems. The technical process behind this is brilliant. They use this iterative optimization process where they repeatedly ask, if I change this pixel by this tiny amount, does it make the robot more likely to perform my target action? And they keep tweaking pixels bit by bit within this attack leader module until the slightly modified image causes the robot to think, oh, clearly the right thing to do here is move my knife off to the left. So the robot is now thinking it's chopping an apple when really it's chopping off the human's hand or something. So these attacks can actually be made sparse and adaptive. So instead of attacking every single frame of the video, the system is smart enough to figure out the critical movements when a small push will have the biggest effect. It's like they're identifying the exact moments when the robot is most vulnerable to suggestion. Now, the fact that this whole process is automated and systematic means that it's not just some one-off lab trick. They've essentially created a machine that can consistently and reliably turn any robot into a potential weapon, not just by showing it slightly modified versions of what it would normally see. And the scariest part is that the robot doesn't know it's being attacked. From its perspective, it's just doing exactly what its training tells it to do based on what it's seeing. It's not malfunctioning. It's not been obviously hacked. There's no code that's been modified, so there's no fingerprints. It's just being psychologically manipulated at a level that's completely invisible to a human observer. And figure 4 here shows the results. And it was effective. They tested this on 2 different robot models, and you can see exactly how the robot's movements change after the attack. The graph shows the robot's path in different planes, the X, Y, and XZ plane, and it's like watching the robot's brain get hijacked. So you can see the ACT model here. There were two models that were used. There was the ACT model and the Baku model. There really wasn't a differentiation between what it would have done and what it did. But for the Baku model, you can see what it would have done. So action sequence pre-attack. So this line is what the motion it would have made. This is the action that it actually made. And there's a huge variance. So it's like the difference between having a skittish horse and a calm one. Same tiny stimulus, but completely different reactions. Figure 5 here shows us the sparse attack experiments, and it's asking, do you need to attack every single frame of the image coming in to mess up the robot, or what does it take to throw the robot off? And what they found was that only attacking 3 frames on average is enough to cause a robot to successfully go on the attack. And here in figure 6, you can see that they actually put this into practice. So this robot is trying to cut the apple. You can see the human standing on the side here, working fine, but then they're able to hack it and get it to turn the wrong direction and jab at the unfortunate human here, who hopefully survived the attack. Now, the fact is that this attack worked 4 out of 10 times in the real world. It's not just theoretical. They've actually proven that you can actually make real robots do dangerous things by messing with what they see in ways that are basically invisible to human beings. This study has some implications that are pretty serious. As robots are becoming more integrated into our homes and our factories and workplaces, these security vulnerabilities could be exploited to cause harm, damage, sabotage, and other problems. Traditional safety measures for robots are always focused on the mechanical limitations and on explicit programming. But AI-powered robots are going to operate with a lot more autonomy and complexity, and this is going to create new attack vectors that haven't even been properly secured. And if you're getting value from this episode, I'd appreciate it if you push the like button, because it really helps the channel grow. So what's the AI capitalist approach to this story? It's exploiting critical vulnerability in AI robots that should set off alarm bells for any business that's going to deploy these systems. And obviously the disturbing part is how the attacks exploit the vision language action models. So it's not just like a surface level bug that can be patched away. The liability nightmare should make executives break into a cold sweat, not to mention brand destruction that would follow even one high-profile incident. And if you want to talk about this more, come on over to aicapitalist.biz and we can talk business. So what's your take on this? Is this research irresponsibly exposing vulnerabilities that could be exploited by bad actors and provide a blueprint for attack? Isn't this just a manual for hackers? Or is this just a wake-up call that could force industry to build proper security measures before robots become widespread in our homes and businesses and start coming at us with knives? The pioneers who solve these security challenges are going to dominate the market, but the road ahead is a lot bumpier than most robotics investors realize. Let me know your thoughts.